Hey cousins, happy Thursday. Last night I was wondering what you guys would appreciate me discussing today, and then I thought I've been getting the most media requests to talk essentially about the change in perspective of Gen Z. So today I wanted to really just talk about the changing narratives that are going on around Gen Z, the different things that Gen Z is asking for and the things that we want. And before y'all even have the opportunity to come for me, I was born in January 1997. That makes me the first month of Gen Z. So don't even come here try to hit me with the millennial allegations because I'm not having it today. Okay, so we're about to get into some things. Y'all know the vibes. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Respectfully. All right, y'all. So also, just so you know, if we get 5 super chats over $5 today, then I will stay and do a Q&A after the show. Be sure to check out PragerU.com. There is a link in the description where you can go take a quiz and tell us or not a quiz, but a poll to let us know how you're enjoying the show, as well as checking out all the different PragerU content. So all of those links are in my description. So now let's get into this whole discussion of what is it that young people want? Because Gen Z continues to be this generation that has all these allegations and all these old tropes and stereotypes calling us the generation of woke snowflakes. And really, that's just not the case anymore. We saw, especially in the 2024 election, that there's obviously a huge change in Gen Z. And we just are not these snowflakes that some of us are. Some of us, but most of us have changed or are beginning to at least see the light of day. So when we talk about these 5 different things that Gen Z wants, I think the first thing that we got to talk about is economic prosperity. Gen Z wants the bag. Okay, so here's the thing about Gen Z that's kind of weird. We are truly this generation that is lacking a middle class, to be honest. Gen Z, I feel like, has this deep pocket of wealth because you have so many people that are taking advantage of various opportunities and all the up and coming technology that's out there. But then you also have part of Gen Z that is as aggressively broke as they possibly can be. So there's this huge divide, but what we all want is we want less regulation and we want more opportunities for ourselves. So when I say that Gen Z is capitalizing on these opportunities, I'm talking about everything from you got Bitcoin and crypto. The Bitcoin and crypto space, as someone who just went to the Bitcoin convention, there were so many young people there. Like, people are all over this. I actually personally know quite a few young people who have exploded in wealth because they were taking their little coins from their high school and middle school jobs, taking that little lemonade stand money and putting it into Bitcoin back when I clearly was just having bad priorities and buying Air Jordans when I was in high school. But there are a lot of people who are taking advantage of this and making a whole bag out of it, okay? Because we see that with inflation and all the different issues with traditional banking, a lot of people in Gen Z don't want anything to do with that. You also have people in Gen Z who are taking advantage of the AI and tech world. I feel like every other person that I know in Gen Z is trying to figure out a way that they can make money with AI. Gen Z is really leveraging these tools because we are the generation that truly grew up with technology. So a lot of this becomes, it's just second nature to us. And then being someone that's considered a zillennial on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z, I really love my era of, just generations, because I grew up in an era where I know what it's like to have, the real world be a part of my life, but I also know what it's like to grow up in a very chronically digital and online type of era. And I feel like in that sector, in that divide, people who are under the age of 31 and over the age of 25, I feel like that is the sweet spot of people who are just really hammering it when it comes to these AI tools and all these different hustles that you can get with that digital space and with the different sectors of the digital space. Shout out to, I might say her last name wrong, Lucy Guo. She's actually, I believe, the youngest self-made billionaire, or at least youngest self-made female or what is it? The wealthiest self-made woman in America or something like that. Some insanely credible title that she deserves, me knowing that all the way down. I've actually met her a couple times. Extremely sweet. She is worth $1.2 billion, is only 29 or 30 years old. She is a prime example of how in the zillennial world, we are taking advantage of all these different tools. She is the founder of Passes, as well as another tech company that she founded and sold years ago for $500 million. So you have so many people like that in this zillennial space that simply wants us to be able to get the bag. I feel like no shade, actually all tea, all shade, and all offense. A lot of prior generations got way too comfortable with the fact that our country was fiscally doomed, and with being comfortable complaining about being broke. And I can't really blame like some millennials for that, because like the 2009 recession is like what they entered adulthood seeing. But Gen Z is over that. It's like, okay, let's come up with some solutions now. You also have so many people, including myself, who are taking advantage of the digital space in the sense of being influencers, being TikTokers, TikTok and YouTube and all these different platforms. Once you build a big enough platforms, a big enough platform, it can be very lucrative. So you have the people who are taking advantage of all of that. And then even, I shouldn't be talking about this on the PragerU platform, but even the OnlyFans people, like there are people who are on there making millions of dollars. So I say all this to say, Gen Z, a lot of us, we're not broke. A lot of Gen Z is not broke. So we want to see economic prosperity. We want to see things become much more attainable and luxurious in our generation. Even though a lot of people want a minimalist aesthetic, they still want to make that money. But despite these income streams, you still have so many people who are struggling to own a home or to acquire the basic luxuries that people had coming to them much easier back in the day. So a lot of people in Gen Z, it's like making great money, but still can't afford to own a home, still can't, or feel like they can't afford to raise a family. I don't even want to look at what the current rates for daycare is in Los Angeles, but I know just talking to my sister-in-law recently who lives over in the Midwest, and her talking about how expensive it is for her two young kids to go to daycare. And it's like, you have to make decisions a lot of the times. It's like, well, is it even cost effective for one of the people to go to work? And then it's like, well, if you don't go to work, then you're still not making enough money to take care of your kids if you don't have two parents that are going to work. So it makes us jealous in Gen Z when we look at the past and we're like, okay, so you're telling me that back in the day, there were people who could just work a typical working class job, just the man in the house working a working class job, and could still afford to buy a house, to raise a bunch of kids, to buy eggs, to live a comfortable living. And these are the same people who are trying to judge us in Gen Z. Oh no. Oh, no, ma'am. You can't keep pointing the finger at Gen Z saying that we're lazy. It's not that we're lazy. We actually work really, really hard. A lot of people in Gen Z, I feel like all we do is work. A lot of us work multiple jobs. I know when I was in my early 20s, there was a point I was working 4 jobs at a time just so I could save up and get a car, because the cost of living up in the San Francisco Bay Area was so ungodly. It was like the fact that an entire half of my month's income was going to my rent at the time. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. But that's where we are now, where you have the median household, or the median home price in America today is almost $500,000. It's over $400,000. In Los Angeles, I'm pretty sure it's well over $1 million. So people in Gen Z, we want to get the bag, and we don't want anything in our way that's going to stop us from getting the bag, whether it's inflation, whether it's our ungodly student loan debts, which I don't know if y'all have seen my Dr. Phil episode where I talked about student loans. I feel like a lot of people put themselves into that trap, but at the same time, it's like, I have empathy. Me, myself, I had a full ride academically because I never had a B growing up. I wasn't playing around when it came to those student loans. I knew I didn't want that trap. But a lot of people, especially if you come from a middle class family, you pretty much get no government aid, no academic aid. They pretty much don't give you anything unless you're going and doing sports, which is why the average student is, or the average borrower of student debt has $30,000 in debt. That's crazy. That is such a crushing amount of money that is on the back of Gen Z, or of just, graduates the second they get out of college. So this is why people are so frustrated. This is why there's so much resentment. And I think this is why people are kind of over the eat the rich narrative too, because hear me out. Hear me out. You can't sit here and say eat the rich and then try to be the rich at the same time. And I feel like a lot of people in Gen Z are waking up to that, where you see a lot of Gen Z men especially are moving over to the right. They at the very least will say that they're more socially liberal, but fiscally they're very conservative, because they understand that to have this entrepreneur mindset, that hustle, that mindset, it totally clashes with wanting to be a leftist, wanting to be a progressive. Progressives do nothing but worship the poor. Okay, they worship the poor. They try to make us all poor. They want us all to be dirt broke, eating bugs. Like that is what the left wants from us. And we're just not having that. Okay, these high taxes, these high regulations, all that's doing is creating more barriers for us to reach prosperity. And it's also creating more barriers for opportunity. There's no opportunity for prosperity for Gen Z when you have all these regulations, when you have these high taxes. And this is why Gen Z's over it. We want to be able to pursue the American dream. We want to be able to take advantage of free markets. What is the point of being the freest country in the world if we don't have these free markets? So that is the first thing that I feel like Gen Z is really asking for, which I really don't think is asking for too much. Okay, now on top of all this prosperity, we got to talk about the hot take. The hot take, masculinity encourages femininity and Gen Z wants back both. I feel like a lot of women straight up regret how far feminism has gone, and they regret it because they want chivalry back. I saw this video a while back and it just cracked me up so much about how there's a lot of women who wish they could go back in time just to say this.
I swear if I could go back in time and tell the woman that stood up for our right to work, I would.
Did that glitch?
No, it ran perfectly fine.
Can you run that back? I feel like it didn't play all the way.
I swear if I could go back in time and tell the woman that stood up for our right to work.
No internet. Just wait. Hang tight. Definitely stuttering from the studio. Now we're back on.
Okay, so we're back. We're chilling.
Yeah, we got signal now. Yep.
Hold on, y'all. Okay, yeah, I see the glitch. Let me know in the live chat. Is it still running well, y'all?
Yep. We got some green bars over here, so it's looking good.
Mwah, no bars. Okay, so there's a lot of women who feel that exact same way. They just want to go back and just curse out all the feminists who made it to where women are now working again. And I feel like this woman just really expounds on that whole premise of the fact that while the initial embracing of feminism's push for equality has now led to so much regret. Can we run the second one?
It appears that it affected some of our videos, so just hang tight.
Okay. Should I just keep going?
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. So basically, you talk to pretty much any woman these days, and they're going to be mad at the OG feminists who fought so hard for women to be able to work. Because now it's like, yes, a lot of you like to go to work. But at the same time, you can't tell me that more of you don't wish that y'all could just put your feet up and raise them babies. Which is a hard job. I shouldn't say put the feet up because, you know, being a homemaker, being a stay-at-home mom or whatever, it's a very rewarding but difficult job within itself. But you can't tell me that all these girls want to be out here just sending emails. You can't tell me that there's so many women who are working miserable jobs in a cubicle that that's actually where they want to be. But a lot of the women who are there because they have to be. They have to be in order to make ends meet. They have to be because that's the way our society has, you know, structured itself now. And it's just funny to me because you look at, there's this 2024 survey that noted that 68% of young women believe it's harder to be a woman, yet they still crave the benefits of chivalry like respect and safety, holding the door open, you know, the basic elements that gentlemen were taught growing up, the basic conservative traditional values that gentlemen were taught to, you know, to have. You can't say, oh, you want it 100% equal. You want to be treated exactly like men, but then at the same time, you want these benefits. You want men to really bend over backwards a lot of the times to make sure that women are safe and protected and doing all of that. And there's this funny trend where a lot of people will just go, I'm just a girl, or literally just a girl. And that's an excuse of why, you know, women won't want to carry something heavy. Or if they run over something, they scratch up their car, there's always a guy that's coming to change the tire or help them out. You know, those are the type of just basic things that men will usually do. Like you see a woman struggling with her flat tire on the side of the road, you pull over, you help them out. Which these days, you might be better off. You might be better off with the flat tire because so many people are so creepy. But you know, those elements of chivalry, or how could I forget this? The biggest time you will see feminism leaving a woman's body is when the bill comes. When that check comes, oh, you don't want to put your car down. It's so funny when you go to dinner with a girl, a lot of the times you'll just see them kind of look around like looking everywhere but at that check and at their wallet. Don't even reach that. They don't reach for their purse. They're checking their lip gloss. They're doing everything possible to not look at that bill that has been placed on the table. And I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. But, you know, to have that and to have these safe spaces, you need masculinity. Masculinity creates a safe space for femininity to flourish, okay? Because women want to be protected. You don't want to have a beta male being the one that is your determining factor of whether or not you're going to be safe in a situation. You don't. Now, see, Mr. Rodriguez is over there being shady. Would you want any of these men to be the ones to protect you from an armed robber? A lot of women would just have to fight that fight themselves. It's like, girl, you better put your hair up and square because none of these men are going to be helping you out. No shade. No shade. But you know, strong leadership, it creates prosperity. Masculinity leads to strong leadership because masculinity inherently just creates this mindset of you need to get things done. You're not going to sit here and wait around for other people to make things happen for you. You have to lead. Okay. That prosperity is what allows for women to be in their more feminine element. It allows for women to have the choice to stay at home if they want to. Masculinity allows for women to feel much more safe and protected in their communities and to start a family. Because I know a lot of women who the only reason that some of them don't want to start families right now is because of how dangerous and chaotic the world is at this point. Okay, that is devastating. And that's stripping a lot of the happiness away from young women, which is why so many young women now are desperately wanting masculinity back so that they feel safe and protected and have the prosperity to be able to start a family, because starting a family, again, statistically, will make you much happier. It's worked for thousands of years. As long as humanity has been around, that has always been the standard that has been set. People want that to come back, okay? And now, for years, though, there was this demonization by woke culture of masculinity, where masculinity was constantly being called toxic. And toxic masculinity, if you had to define it, it basically, you know, because I feel like a lot of people on the right, they act like they don't know what toxic masculinity actually means, or they try to make it seem like when that was said that it engulfed all things masculine, which for some people it did. But I think the more colloquial explanation of what toxic masculinity is, it's when a man feels the need and the desire to lean into their masculine element. And I don't think that there's anything toxic about that. Now, when you can't argue it's like toxic masculinity, it's like if a man is afraid to wear, terrified of the thought of wearing the color pink. It's like, okay, you wore the color pink. It doesn't mean that you're going to chop your balls off. Like, come on, be serious. So I can understand it in that context. But the people who try to make it seem like masculinity is inherently toxic, you were the reason that our society is doomed. You were the reason that society is cooked. You were the reason that everybody's bills are affected. Okay. And in 2024, King's College of London actually did a study and showed that 37% of young men view the term as very unhelpful. And that was nearly double the rate for women, meaning that about 80% of these women, at least close to 80% of women, thought that the term toxic masculinity was a good thing when they did that poll. That's crazy. That is actually crazy. You sit here and then how can you complain about, you know, the lack of protection that you have in society and how hard it is to be a woman and how you would rather deal. And like, you remember that whole thing where it's like, would you rather, what was it? What was the thing with the bear, Mr. Rodriguez? It was like, what was it? Would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear? Is that what it was?
What on earth was that? I didn't even know that was a thing. I must have missed that.
You didn't see that that trend was
bear.
everywhere. It's like it was something like if you were trapped somewhere, would you rather be stuck with a man or a bear? And the reason why I feel like so many women chose the bear, it wasn't because of toxic masculinity. It was because of the lack of masculinity. Wow. It was because you have seen such POS men, such pathetic men, that you would rather be in the room with a bear because you don't feel protected by men. And that's a lack of masculinity. That's what happens when you don't have strong masculine figures and like positive, healthy masculinity being presented. What you end up with is a bunch of F-boys, for lack of a better term. So we got to bring that back. And that's what people have desperately wanted back, because those traits of strength and leadership being viewed as harmful has led to why we don't have strength in leadership. It made men for too long feel vilified, which is why there's this huge pushback. And I hate to give this man flowers for anything, because honestly, he is just such a roach in my mind. But that's why people like Andrew Tate became so popular, because influencers like him really capitalized on the alienation of male figures and started promoting this apex predator alpha male type of dominance and success. But at the very minimum, that gave people something to look up to. Everyone at the end of the day is looking for a sense of purpose, and seeing these red pill bro types as messy, like some of them you can consider toxic masculinity, because they were just like exploiting the worst traits of men. But at that point, it's like, at least it offered young men a sense of purpose. And for those who didn't swing too far on the pendulum with those red pill bro types, it at least created a sense of pride and manhood again. And I think that's something that Gen Z has desperately craved, and that even young millennials have been wanting to see come back. That sense of strength, leadership, and purpose. And I just find it so wildly ironic, though, that there are so many women that are constantly talking about how much they hate men and how men are such dogs and pigs. And then they are the first ones to submit to masculinity. For example, Sabrina Carpenter. Do we have her album cover? So this one is so horny all the time. It's like getting out of control. So Sabrina Carpenter, if you've been under a rock and don't know her smash hits, Espresso, Taste, Please, 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 she has really taken over the world by storm in the last like year or so. And you know, she's extremely talented. She's been around for a long time. And I find her really funny, because I understand a lot of this is just a gimmick. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's eating. She makes great music, so I'll take it. But this is her new album cover for her album that's coming out, I believe she said in August, called Man's Best Friend, which is her on her hands and knees, literally on her knees for a man, for a white man.
Oh. Oh.
Like, Sabrina, get up and fight. Like, why are you submitting this bad, girl? She almost makes me want to be a feminist, because I'm just like, girl, get up.
Bruh.
Like, what man made her this down bad that inspired this cover? I want to know who the man is in the You know what? Let me back on topic. It's women like her that make music all the time about how trash she thinks men are, but she is the first to submit to a man. Every single stop of her tour, she did a different sex position that she was going to do with a man. She's very campy and over the top and overexpressive, but she's a prime example. She has a new hit that just came out called Man Child that's about to debut #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is a massive, insane accomplishment to have. And Man-Child, in the music video, it's her sitting in there's a part where she's like sitting in the tub, and it's like her talking to these boys, and it turns to the guys, and it's just two pigs. Girl, you're sitting in the tub with two pigs. You're the messy one that's in the tub with two of them. You're dabbling in the mud too. How are you going to say that men are pigs, but you are in the bathtub with two of them? Nasty. You need to find God. But this is what I'm saying. It's always the girls who talk so much about how men are trash who end up being these outside city girls for the streets. Okay, they love to be treated like trash. It's nothing new that they say nice guys finish last, but hopefully that's starting to change, because a lot of women have been treated like trash enough. And if you continue to find yourself in a situation as a woman where you're constantly dating pigs and trash, then you haven't been belittled enough. You haven't been with enough men that don't know how to lead enough. You continue to play yourself. And I just find that to be the irony. But when you bring back healthy masculinity and promoting it as a good image, you will start to see more men that are doing what's actually masculine, which is leading by example and leading, their family, respecting their women, holding the door open, making sure that they walk on the side of the sidewalk closer to the street, just that element of protection of the people that are in their tribe. That is just what's inherently rooted in masculinity, and we need to bring that back. Okay, reclaiming that as a positive force, I think, is something that Gen Z is desperately wanting. okay? Because this is not, Gen Z is not the He-Man Women Haters Club like people try to make it seem. And if you don't know that reference, then you're too young, okay? Way too young. And that's coming from somebody at the top of Gen Z. Shout out to Mr. Murphy, Will Murphy. He's one of the other producers who helps with the show. And I told him to bring up a picture of the He-Man Women Haters Club, and he had no idea what I was talking about. I was shocked. I was sick.